How men over 40 fall in love. Let's get inside a guy's head today. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because there's an old adage that says men find love through sex and women give sex to find love, or a variation of that. And it's an interesting thing to unpack, and we're going to unpack love from a variety of different ways. So, to some degree, there's some element of truth. I think throughout from our caveman days, there was this biological drive to become physically intimate with women. And I'll tell you this even 100,000 years later, and we go back to Neanderthals 100,000 years ago, or roughly thereabouts. Certainly, men are driven by sex. You can ask a man, you can literally tell that most men, what do they have on their mind on a first date is to be physically intimate with you. I'm going to say it's an incontrollable, or well, certainly it's controllable, but it's such a palpable desire. And it can be very confusing because women who, this adage, men find love through sex and women give sex hoping to find love, could set us off in an uncomfortable circumstance, because the minute two people are physically intimate with one another, it can create bonds with one another. It can create an emotional bond. It can create an unhealthy attachment to another human being. And prior to birth control, there was a bit of resistance to having sex because there could have been a consequence 9 months later. Now, because of birth control, we don't have the same stigma or expectations around sex, that sex can be experienced from a free and just a purely pleasurable place. And there's nothing wrong for two people to be physically intimate early on, but there are some potential consequences. So as I explore the idea of love, I've been thinking about the way most relationships are formed today. It's very transactional. Now, let me explain by what's transactional. Oftentimes, there's an expectation of entertainment, fun, and romance. Entertainment, fun, and romance. When I heard a woman on a TikTok video say, I expect a man to wine and dine me on a first date, there's an expectation of entertainment, fun, and romance. And certainly it's nice to experience those things. Fun and play is rather important for a relationship. Being romantic with one another is rather important. But as a prelude to building a relationship, I don't think that's the healthiest place to be. Now, in addition, I talked about transactional relationships. There's an element of the practical life, to be of service to one another, to be teammates to one another. And that's certainly important building block and foundation for a healthy, happy relationship, to be of service to the other, to be practical, to, in the 5 love languages, the acts of service, being there for each other as teammates. And certainly I just talked about the sexual piece. And let's face it, the reason why most of us want a romantic relationship is we want that entertainment, fun, romance, be of service, teamwork, but also to be physically intimate with someone. But there's something very few humans really pay attention. I think it's one of the reasons why so many relationships fail, why so many people go through divorce, is because oftentimes relationships are missing the emotional piece and the spiritual piece. That's right, the emotional piece and the spiritual piece. And the emotional piece is that capacity to express your emotions, to express your feelings about your partner, to have regular conversations on an emotional level. And that spiritual piece is something beyond yourself, that there is something. Now, I don't mean religious, so anyone who is anti-religion or pro-religion, I don't mean it from a religious sense. I just mean, it's kind of the most common spiritual question is, who am I? Why am I here? What's this all for? And exploring that with a partner allows two people to connect beyond that transactional. Now, I recognize so much dating advice out there can be so confusing, and women consume so much because they're like experiencing true love can feel rather elusive. From the masculine and feminine energy conversations and the sexual polarity conversations to how you're supposed to show up and the 9 ways to do this. And believe me, I'm guilty of this in my videos because my titles oftentimes go down there. It can be rather confusing because, and particularly for those of us in midlife, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, because the difference for those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s, it's different in our 20s and 30s, is that, most young people who get married they have a primary goal of starting a family, predominantly speaking. I mean, this isn't an absolute. The difference for those of us in midlife, roughly 75% of singles over 45 years old are divorced. So with that, a lot of times divorced with children. So there's an element of many couples don't know how to blend their lives together, how to build something together when they already have an established life prior to, and they have previous relationships. And we're going to talk about that as well. The TV show Brady Bunch made it look so simple. 2 supposed widowers, and we find out later Carol Brady wasn't a widow. She was a divorced. At least in the movie, they state that. But they seem to blend their lives so easily. And folks, for those of us out there, blending lives is a really complicated thing. So we have to recognize that in our 20s and 30s, the way we connect is so different than those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Now, when we're talking about love, I think it's really important to explore love attachment styles. If you're not familiar with the book, here's 3 books. This is the older version. It's called Attach by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. And by the way, all the books I recommend are listed below in Jonathan Recommend Books. Also, Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, and also Learning Love by Thais Gibson. These are the kind of the premier attachment specialists to understand what's known as secure and insecure love attachment style. Secure and insecure. And while they believe that 50% of the population is secure, I don't even believe that one bit. I don't believe that whatever studies they've done are accurate. I just don't believe it. Doesn't mean it's not accurate. I just don't believe it. I think for those in the dating marketplace who are single over 40 years old, I think predominantly most everybody has an insecure attachment style, that they are either anxious, they are either it's anxious, preoccupied, they are either fearful avoidant, or they are dismissive avoidant. And I think what many people believe is love, again, we're going to talk about love in a deeper sense for a moment, is really an unhealthy attachment to a person. I think this is partly because we have a very deeply wounded population out in the dating marketplace. It's hard not to be wounded from adult experiences. Think about divorce in and of itself. Divorce is the unraveling of the tapestry of a life you had with another human being. And that has emotional ramifications, and to act naive to that and not find ourselves making comparisons with other people, finding ourselves to wanting, something that was within that, or rejecting something in that past relationship. We are dealing with a population that probably doesn't even know the truest sense of what it means to love. Since we're talking about love and what is love, I think of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Now they're not married, and yet they've been together for 40 years. They have what I call an all-in relationship. They are there for each other, for the good and the bad, the thick and the thin. I look at true love as when someone has cancer, wiping the vomit off their face because they're going through chemotherapy. And for those people that seek transactional relationships, it's all about the entertainment, fun, and romance. I had one woman say, I expect a man to pay for my date because I get dressed up for him. He owes me. And in that same sentence, she said, I don't feel I'm entitled. I mean, She's literally acting entitled, that expectation. And men, a lot of men pay for dates, excuse me, spitting, because they expect sex. There's this transactional expectation that oftentimes happens. But with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, they have what I think when I think of love. I think when two people say I love you, and we'll talk about when that should happen, it should mean I'm here. You matter. We are important. I've got your back. I'm not going anywhere, and I only want you. I'm here. I'm present to this experience. I'm present to this experience. You matter. Your feelings matter to me, commensurate with my own feelings. We are important. That means our relationship is a separate entity. When I talked earlier about the spiritual aspect of a relationship, is looking at a relationship as a sacred container for one another. If you haven't read the book, where is it? I have to go up here to get it. Oh, there's that book. Sacred Relationships, the practice of intimate erotic love. And it's not about sex. This is about treating your relationship as a separate entity. We are important. I've got your back. That's that practical sense. I'm going to be there for you. We're a team in all of this. I'm not going anywhere. Means I'm fully committed. And I only want you, meaning I know there's a ton of Instagram women out there that it'd be nice to be physical with, but I only want you. You are the one who turns me on. You're the one I want to jump in bed with. So when we look at the elements of love, we have to recognize the elements of a relationship that leads to commitment. We have to look at chemistry and attraction. Yes, that's important. That entertainment piece, that romance piece. Yes, of course, it's important. But shared values and a shared vision is equally important, to be on the same page on what you want and to share the same values and have lifestyles that are blendable, like that Brady Bunch conversation I talked about. And most importantly, emotional maturity and good relationship skills. The vast majority of humans have poor relationship skills, poor communication skills, and poor skills to regulating their emotions. So how do men over 40 fall in love? Well, we remember that men over 40 are oftentimes have a different agenda, but most importantly, many men over 40 and women suffer for some level of pain due to divorce and multiple relationships. Let me repeat that. They suffer from a little bit of pain from divorce or multiple relationships. I can speak to this. I didn't realize until I genuinely had my heart broken and experienced the pain of loss, of how that can affect us. I didn't realize this until I, went through this on my own, in my own relationship. And I recognize that I can empathize with my audience and my clientele, because I now understand from a visceral sense what it means to grieve a relationship that didn't work out. And so sadly, a lot of men over 40 particularly haven't properly grieved a relationship. So first you have to recognize how a man falls in love. Well, he has to be in a space ready for love. His fear and pain, well, let me reframe that. His desire for a relationship exceeds the fear and the pain of past hurts or even childhood or adult traumas. This is the tricky piece. This is why in my private coaching, we have to, I encourage women to investigate this before they ever enter into a dating dynamic, to understand how much pain and fear can affect the capacity for someone to love. And I said earlier, it's really difficult not to compare past relationships when you're in the current dating environment. It's almost impossible, because we have residue from our past relationships. For some people, that residue is so charged. Sadly, a lot of women become bitter and jaded. Sadly, a lot of men become bitter and jaded. And so they're hoping for something magical to happen instead of being pragmatic. They're hoping for something magical to heal the wound of the pain from the past. You see, sadly, very few humans do personal development, self-help, and spiritual work to be prepared for love. And if you haven't read the book, The Hoffman Process, this is a deep dive into healing childhood wounds and adult traumas so that you can actually be ready for love. In fact, I wrote a book about it. It's called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. There's a link below to get a copy of my book. I had to make a plug. It's difficult not to have residue from our past relationships. And if some people are so deeply attached, I've witnessed this with women dating men who had their hearts deeply broken, and there's this stupid old adage, how do you get over somebody? Is to enter into a new relationship. Now, there's some elements to truth that, but if you are trying to avoid the pain of a past relationship by entering into a relationship, and many of you witness this with men immediately after divorce, they're back on the dating apps. The minute they break up with someone, they're back on, or not. First off, let me rewind. They go through a divorce, they enter into the dating marketplace through the dating apps, and they just broke up with someone. Literally, the first thing they do is they go on the dating apps. I've witnessed women do this. I've witnessed men do this. Because when you're trying to fill a void, you're going to be approaching love from a very, it goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Men fall in love through sex. So when they chase sex, they have this unconscious belief that chemistry equals relationship success. And women have this unconscious belief too, that chemistry equals relationship success. And I'm here to say what I shared earlier. Yes, chemistry and attraction is important, but shared values, shared vision, blendable lifestyles to be service one another, emotional maturity, good relationship skills. That's what takes love to the level of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. So how do men fall in love? Well, it's going to happen through social activities, hobbies, mutual interest, and integrating each other into each other's lives. Certainly that physical important is going to be radically important, but it's through social activities, hobbies, mutual interest, is through the doing of things together, because that's how two people build the most important facet of love, and that is a deep friendship for one another, a deep friendship with one another. And there's a saying, true love is friendship on fire, meaning you have a deep friendship for one another, but most importantly, you have that passion and desire to want to rip each other's clothes off. And if you're lucky, you experience a relationship that includes that emotional intimacy and that spiritual intimacy. So when should two people feel like they're in love with each other? I want to spend a minute to explore this. I think so we have to recognize unhealthy attachment, as I said earlier, that insecure attachment is going to feel like love. I'm not talking about that kind of love. I'm talking about two emotional grown-ups, two emotionally healthy people. At what point should they start feeling like they're in love with someone, that I'm here, you matter, we're important, I've got your back, I'm not going anywhere, and I only want you? I think if two people live less than 1 hour from each other from a driving perspective, meaning they can see each other at least twice or 3 times a week after the initial, like once they decide that they're going to explore a relationship together. So once they've had physical intimacy, usually, if they can spend on average 2, 3, maybe even 4 days and nights a week together, roughly in that range. I would say after spending about 3 to 6 months, this isn't an absolute. If two people have strong feelings for one another, and they mutually, beyond the physical sex. So again, they're doing the social activities, the hobbies, the mutual interests. They're integrating into each other's lives. By the 3 to 6 month mark, most people know if this is a serious relationship or not. Most men know. Now, sadly, many of you are experiencing emotionally broken men Or worse, you're experiencing that user. He's just in it for the short run. So let's not include those men. Sadly, roughly about 60% of the population of men and women alike are what I call spenders. That means that they want companionship, connection, and sex. They want that transactional relationship. Well, they're not even thinking of it from a transactional. It's a default, unconscious relationship. But what's lacking is there is an emotional woundedness in one or both people that cause them to engage in this unhealthy, insecure type of relationship. And so this mark of 3 to 6 months doesn't apply to them because it's not the healthy kind of love I'm talking about. When two emotional grown-up people get together, and they genuinely have strong desire for one another. They share the same values. They have the same vision. They have lifestyles that are blendable, and they have that emotional maturity. I would say within 3 to 6 months, they should know if this is a legit, serious relationship, and they feel like they are in love with each other. I think the first 90 days is that probationary period. And then after that is when two people, if they're genuinely a good match for one another and they're going deeper into emotional intimacy and spiritual intimacy, that's about the time that you should be here. And again, these aren't absolutes. This is just a perception on my part. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts on everything I shared. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit the like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to get the books I recommend, to get my dating vows, or join my mailing list, all listed below. All right, those who know my live format, it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, write the word question in the chat box, or you can purchase and then post the question thereafter, okay? Or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. All the money, there's a little $sign in the chat box. All the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Asley. That's a picture of him right there. His nickname is Salty. He's my son who passed away over 6 years ago. In his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process and Insight Institute, just to name a few. And our goal today is $50. So I'd appreciate that. And anyone who wants to join the hot seat live and talk to me, there's a link in the chat box right now where you can click and we can actually have a conversation one-on-one talking about whatever you want. All right, as I'm looking, Debbie's in the house, Catherine's in the house, Jerry's in the house, Melissa's in the house. Looks like you're having a chat. So many of you have written me because you'd like to hear about the date I had 2 nights ago. All right, so in my video on Thursday, okay, there we go. Jerry has already asked it. How did, and then Ellie has asked it, and Debbie has asked it. Okay, so I'm going to start with how my date went, okay? Now, just to give you a little backstory, I believe it was Monday. So it was Monday night. I got a message from a woman from a dating app. The dating site is Millionaire Match. Now, the reason why I'm on Millionaire Match, it's rather expensive. I believe it's $70 a month to be on the site. And what I believe is, A, you eliminate a lot of the scam artists because they don't want to invest. Well, some scam artists do invest in that, expensive amount. And by the way, to spend $70 a month to possibly find the love of your life, I think that's a bargain. Okay. But there's that piece. So she wrote me a very cute message. She triggered the Leo in me by saying I was handsome. She wanted to know why I hadn't been snatched up. She said something cute. And I responded back to her. And we had this little banter going back and forth. And I was very upfront that I was looking for a serious relationship. And I was very upfront. I was looking for a serious relationship. And I wanted to know if she was on the same page. Okay, so I'd say cumulatively, we spoke on the phone a couple times. I would say we accumulated about 6 hours of conversation. Now, many of you probably would reject that. I Something I teach in my private coaching is called radical honesty, pre-qualifying your prospects. So what I have is a list of questions, and I told her right up front, I have a list of questions to see if we're on the same page. Would you be open to discussing this? And she was like, absolutely. And I went through some of the things. We talked about politics. We talked about current affairs. We talked about any personal development, self-help, spiritual work. We talked about our spiritual sides of who we are. We talked about the type of I inquired about the type of relationship that I'm looking for. And I also inquired on the type of relationship she looked for. And we talked a little bit about our past relationships. I wanted to know when her last relationship ended, if anybody thinks they're in a relationship with her right now, because I tend to prefer to date one person at a time. I don't like the distraction of dating multiple people at the same time. It just feels disingenuous. I need to be single focused. Not that I mean that as exclusivity or anything. I'm just simply meaning it's easier for me to date one person at a time. And I just wanted to get a sense of where she was at. So we had this conversation and we agreed to meet on a Thursday night, which was 2 nights ago. And one of the things I appreciated was she arrived on time. Like, I think I got there 5 minutes before we were planned to meet, and she got there 1 minute after we planned to meet. So I really appreciate that she was on time. And we both kind of looked at each other. We did the sniff test. And we actually said this very quickly in the first 5 minutes, whether or not we felt mutual attraction for one another. I mean, folks, how many times have you gone on a date where you're like, oh my God, I'm so not attracted to this person? Well, we got that out of the way. So it actually, I think, speaking on the phone for 6 hours and becoming a little bit familiar with one another and getting that physical attraction piece out of the way. And believe me, that's incredibly awkward when it doesn't exist. So I think it allowed us to feel comfortable. And I talked about my YouTube channel. I talked about being a dating and relationship coach. She told me a bit. She is a member of a yacht club and she's very active. She's in the board and all that kind of stuff. So we had, she has a really interesting life from that perspective. She's retired. She spends a lot of time with charities and philanthropic adventures. She was very curious about my professional life. She wanted to understand personal development, self-help, and spiritual work a little bit more detailed. And we really hit it off. I mean, we were a little bit flirty with each other. I mean, I'm a physical touch person. She's a physical touch person. So there was just light touching and holding each other's hands. There was a playfulness. But at the same time, I was very mindful to be upfront about who I am. Now, I said in the video earlier, it's natural to make comparisons. And I found myself comparing who I was in the last relationship and how I'm operating in this relationship. Because now, after going through the heartache and the breakup and recognizing that, I did paint some red flags green, that I wore rose-colored glasses, I want to go into this experience very aware of not getting attached too quickly. I will confess that in the past relationship, I got attached too quickly. I believe that relationship was meant to be exactly what it was. Some people criticize we moved too fast. I would say that I got attached too quickly. But I was meant to experience that because now I can go into this experience with a bit of consciousness, with a bit of understanding, not walls up. I think it's the worst thing we can do is to have walls up. Some people have to be protective. I don't believe in that. That's not healthy. But what I do believe is in conscious attachment and recognizing that getting attached to another person should happen over building blocks, as I was talking about earlier, through social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends. That's the building blocks. It takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust. And so I believe I rushed it in my last relationship, and I'm going to be very mindful going forward not to get overtly excited. And while I'm feeling a little bit of lust and limerence for this person, and I think she feels a little bit of lust and limerence for us, you know, I want to approach this from very a conscious attachment style and not an insecure attachment style. So, but I also recognize that my love attachment style is attached, so I'm a little bit anxious. Now, if you're an anxious person, you know, when you send a text message and you don't get a response back within 12 and a half seconds, all of a sudden you think whatever you wrote, that person is mad at you. Um, so it's interesting to experience because I think I can already tell we're a little bit mismatched in that space, but that's okay because I get to practice non-attachment. I get to practice being detached from the outcome. Again, earlier I said I rushed getting attached too quickly. I'm being very mindful, staying in my lane. And so it's interesting to witness who I am now versus who I was 2.5 years ago. So that's kind of fascinating to me. So she has a very busy life, and she had expressed, and I talked to her, I'd like to see her. I would like to go on another date with her. What does her schedule look like? And she was professing that was rather busy. And I got kind of bummed out. Okay. And because I'm excited, and when I'm excited, my little kid comes out, my tail is wiggling. Oh, I want to share something with you in a second, but let me share with you the ending of the relationship ended with both of us with a gentle kiss, a hug, and we both mutually said that we like each other. I said, I like you, and she said, I like you too. Now, I don't know if that was in response to what I said, but I wanted to be clear to say, I like you. And also, it was nice to hear that she liked me too. Okay, fast forward to yesterday. We spoke on the phone for a little bit, asking her about her schedule. And she had told me she was busy. And then, so she'll get back to me. And what happened next, made my heart skip a little bit. So she sent me a text message saying, hey, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow night, but I've got an event at my yacht club. And would you be interested in going? And she put the checkbox on the text, said, check yes or check no. And because we had talked about, remember when you're a little kid, in grade school or high school, do you like me? Check the box yes, check the box no. So I checked the box yes. So we actually have it's a kind of a barbecue band at the yacht club. And I think that speaks volumes that she's inviting me to something that's, something very personal to her. So I think she feels like that that this is something that has potential. I feel like this has something that has potential. But at the same time, we both agreed, speaking on the phone, that we have to pace ourselves. Certainly there's that attraction and chemistry. It seems like we share the same values and we share the same vision in life. We are concerned because there is a 1 hour distance of drive. Well, actually, without traffic, it's 38 minutes, and in LA, everything is traffic. So it's a 1 hour drive. And we address this because that can be problematic. When you're dating someone and you're like 4 months into a relationship, it's nice to be able to say, hey, can I pop over and hang out with you for an hour or two, before I go do this or that, So when you have this much distance, I think it's about 28 to 30 miles, roughly as a crow flies, you have to be a little bit more mindful. Unlike, the long distance relationship where it's a plane ride away, that was a whole different dynamic. I'm a Leo. She's a Virgo. By the way, I can see someone. By the way, there's only a 1 year age difference. She is 1 year and 20 days younger than me. For those of you, if and when I show a photograph, you're all going to say, why are you robbing the cradle? Because she looks very young. And it's interesting because when I put myself back out in the dating marketplace, a lot of women my own age, messaged me, but also a lot of women in their 20s and 30s messaged me. I had hundreds of messages from women in their 20s and 30s that messaged me on whether it was Bumble or Hinge. And I'm just not interested in someone that's significantly younger. I think To each his own. I think many women these days are dating much younger men. I mean, certainly Cher and Madonna are in that bracket, but I know a lot of women who feel very vibrant and they feel as though men their own age aren't. So we're seeing a lot of that. We certainly recognize that men habitually prefer to date younger. That's for their ego. There's a lot of other reason in there. One of the reasons why men seek younger women is they're not as wounded, or they might not appear, they don't have a lot of baggage. That's why a lot of men do that. And a lot of women are recognizing that the minute we get to midlife, this conversation is over 40, we come to the table with a lot of luggage or baggage in our lives. And a lot of people just don't know how to integrate the two. So, all I'm going to share with you this, and then we'll start with the questions. I will share with you that I like this person and I think she likes me. There's both physical attraction with one another. We seem to share the same vision and values in our lives. And, like anything, it builds upon itself. Do I believe at love at first sight? No, I believe we can feel lust or limerence at first sight. I don't believe genuine. I think genuine love takes it. Let me differentiate between healthy and conscious love versus unhealthy love attachment style, insecure love. I think healthy love is built over a period of time. And as I said earlier in this broadcast, when two people hit the 3 to 6 month mark, I think they know how they feel about the other person, that if this person has long-term potential or not. Dating today is like, the reason why it's called dating, because holy fucking shit, trying to figure out another human being is almost impossible. So they replaced it with the word dating. Okay. But at the same time, dating is a unique experience in our environment. For hundreds of thousands of years, nobody dated. They mated with one another. We are living in the first time in history in the last 60 plus years where dating, evaluating, getting the option to choose another person requires doing your due diligence. And that's what I teach in my private coaching is right. Here's a link. I teach how to be detached and be more mindful in the process, to be intentional, to vet this person, to determine if there is really potential, or is this just an insecure attachment or an unhealthy sexual dynamic. I hope that resonated with you. So that's my update with respects to the relationship. Just Cami says, I literally had a man tell me that older women know too much. Yeah, certainly they have more life experience. There's no doubt about it. Just Cami also said younger men often choose, men often choose younger women to manipulate them. That's certainly a possibility. I certainly believe a lot of women who choose younger men because they can be in their power. They can feel like they can be in more control. So that's a potential truth. All right, Barbara's in the house. Question, feeling limerence towards a good male friend, non-relationship, and he's now flirting with other women in front of me. I feel disrespected. I'm pulling away. How do I behave or discuss? So, well, you said it's a non-relationship male friend. So I would say the reason why you feel disrespected is because you have feelings towards this person of a romantic nature. And so you're being triggered because because he's a free agent. He can do whatever he wants. By the way, I have female friends. We go out. I've flirted with other women and they didn't feel disrespected or want to pull away from me because we're friends. Friends allow friends to be themselves. So I guess the question is, are you going to be upfront about your feelings towards him? Because you're obviously being triggered. So my suggestion is you get to the root of what's causing the trigger for you. And if he's a good friend, you express what's going on, and you can certainly make a request saying, hey, when we're out socially. But I think if you tell him you have feelings for him, it's going to completely change the dynamic of your friendship. So you have to really assess how much of a friend he is to you. Because if he meets the love of your life and he starts off in a relationship, are you two still going to be talking and hanging out with each other? Probably not. If you met the love of your life, are you still going to be talking to him and hanging out? Probably not. And if you do, there's an unhealthy component to that. When a relationship ends, the door can close. I don't think I've had mixed feelings on this in the past, but I have a clearer vision that it is absolutely it's okay to be friendly to an ex-partner, to be friendly with them. I think that's healthy, just like Demi Moore and Bruce Willis. They have children together and they have a very healthy, but I don't think they call each other and let me tell you about what Ashton, when Demi Moore was with Ashton Kutcher, I don't think she was calling Bruce Willis and saying, let me tell you all about it. That kind of friend. But and we're obviously in your particular case, my suggestion is to get to the root of what's triggering you, because if you two were just simply friends, him being flirty with other women, I mean, you should want him to be happy. If he's a friend, you should want him to fall in love. That's what you want for your friends, Barbara. So that's my take on that. Okay. Power of Chi. Jonathan. Do you think this recent date is currently watching you talk about her on this video? If so, do you think she'd be mad or upset? Great question. So she asked me yesterday, has your audience asked about the date? And I told her, yes, they asked about it. And I said I was going to talk about it today. How do you feel about it? And she said, I have no problem whatsoever. I probably will. I will fast forward to the place that I got started today and start to share it. And I'll invite her to watch it. I feel as though I'm being very respectful. I told her up front, my personal life is rather public. I believe as a coach, one of the things I do is to lead by example and also to be transparent without compromising a boundary. So I said to her, look, if we explore a relationship together, there are going to be things that are very private to us, and I will respect that privacy. And I will always check in with you and share, this publicly. Look, it is so early to tell if this is actually going to manifest in anything. But why I'm sharing this experience with you, let me backtrack for a second. Many times when a relationship ended, and many of you know my relationship ended a year ago, we want to fill that void right away. There's this void that happens in our life where when we spent regular time with someone and all of a sudden they're gone, just like a death. And there was a propensity for me to want to jump into the dating marketplace. And while I did, after about 4 or 5 months, put myself on the apps, I operated completely differently this time. I operated from a place of real intentionality. And so in the last 7 months, I've only, other than, oh, by the way, I completely forgot to mention the biggest thing about this person. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Well, let me just say this. I've only been on one date, and this woman, so you guys are going to be floored when I'm about to share this with you. Her name is Maria. Those who follow me know my previous relationship. Her name is Marie. The irony is Marie's birth name is Maria Cecilia. So Maria Cecilia is Colombian. Maria is Italian, which is a very common name in both of those cultures. So I've got to tell you guys something. It was hard not to say, I really had to be, when I was using Maria's name in a sentence, when I said something to her, I had to be radically present not to say the other person's name. And we talked about that. And I said, look, I'm going to make a faux pas every now and again, which I've already caught myself once. Isn't that fucking ironic? I mean, what the fuck? It's interesting because I asked her what celebrity she looks like, and some people have said that I don't think she looks like Marie Osmond, but how ironic is that? So But dark hair, dark eyes, dark skin, very commensurate to my last relationship. So, but what's interesting is when I say her name, I have to be radically present. And I don't think there's an accident this happened. So I just find that to be rather interesting. So to go back to your question, power of chi, no, she already knows this is going to happen. And thanks for asking. Let's keep going here. By the way, Annette Paul has said, coming from an anxious attachment, I've tried the approach of non-attached with new mate. And because I compare with past relationship, I find myself missing my ex who I was attached to. So coming back to what I was sharing earlier, and the reason why I'm so public, I recognize that I didn't do the grieving process. I shared this in a video recently, but I missed the one element in the grieving process over the last 11 months, or the 11 months from the time the relationship ended. I didn't do the anger piece. I didn't own the pain of how much it hurt to have a relationship end. I didn't do that piece. And it so fascinates me because when I recognized that I didn't do the anger piece and I went through the anger piece, I mean, and not, let me be clear, not, Marie did nothing wrong. She was doing what was best for her, but I was collateral damage to that. And it hurt. It fucking hurts when someone says, I don't want to be with you, especially when you're in love with a person. That fucking hurts. And so I took the baseball bat to the pillows to let my anger out. I was going through a lot of emotional things for a couple weeks. And then, bam, Maria pops up in my life. I have no idea if it's going anywhere, but my point is, the minute I surrendered the hurt, the minute I let go of the hurt, and I did a mushroom journey last week, and my goal was to release the hurt, to let go. The minute that happened, I mean, I'm going to tell you something. If this works out, I'm going to go, holy shit, folks. I can tell you from personal experience, the minute we let go of the past is when things magically happen. I truly believe that. So it's kind of rather interesting. And that's why I share publicly. And Jane says, thanks for sharing your knowledge so freely. I just discovered your content a few days ago, and I'm learning so much at 49 years young, enjoying solitude for 3 years. I am grateful that this past year, I've really worked on what I worked on what I preach, self-love. I really worked on it. And there's no doubt that I'm going to say this. When the relationship ended, I went straight to acceptance and gratitude. Okay. And I bypassed the pieces of grief. I think it was because I was in shock. I was in such shock that it took me months to realize that this fucking hurt. That doesn't mean I want her back. We confuse the pain of loss. Like, look at my son passed away. Of course I want him back. Okay. Of course I want him back. Of course we're going to have a hole in our heart when a treasured relationship ends. But I believe these experiences, the pain I experienced, has made me a better person now, so I can show up in my sovereignty to this person, so I can show up as a full and complete person to her. I can show up with more knowledge, and I'm not going to do what I did before. Hopefully I won't, by rushing the process or getting anxiously attached. I think the growth and the healing that comes when we are introspective through our past relationships, it opens us up. So I want to include that piece in the conversation as well. Betty says, your vision board had Marie Osmond on it. Yeah. And there's a tiny little bit, I can see a little bit, but she reminds me more of the actress. This woman, Maria, reminds me of the actress of the girlfriend in Deadpool. I forgot her first name. She's this, I think she's Brazilian. She's absolutely gorgeous, but that's who she reminds me of. Is if any, and by the way, I love Deadpool. I'm going to hopefully see the Deadpool 3 this weekend. I love their relationship. I loved how they were playful. And what I like is we already have that little bit of banter going on between us. 11 asks, why do men first show interest and then disappear, never ask you to go on a date with them? Well, it's a very common tale that when we show interest is because we might be experiencing a childhood wound or adult trauma that feels familiar, or we might be experiencing lust or limerence. We are swimming in a sea of emotional dysfunctionality for both men and women. Many men and women haven't really shored up their emotional well-being, and so they're operating in a very disingenuous way, and that feels disingenuous when someone shows interest. That's why I'm not a big proponent. Men are the leaders of the relationship, and you just sit back in your feminine energy and let them be in your masculine. You see, that rhetoric can set you up for failure, folks, because the mating dance is a very complicated one. This is, when you hear men are simple, that's just fucking bullshit. Human beings are ridiculously emotionally complicated. And half the time, most men are just winging it. They really don't even understand their own emotions and what they truly want. So when I have these titles, it's merely to open your consciousness up to recognizing that, there's no one formula that works. I'm just offering some perspective so you can shift your perspective going on. Okay. Let's keep going here. Melissa says the pain sucks, especially when you think everything is going well and when you think you're really good together. Yeah, listen, I wasn't blindsided, but it did feel like it came out of the blue. And I'm grateful because I wouldn't meet this person, and I feel like we already have more in common than my previous relationship. Yes, Jerry mentions Deadpool. So the actress who played the girlfriend of Ryan Reynolds or Deadpool is who she reminds me of. Okay. Power of Chi. Oh, the actress's name is Morena Bakarian. I think she's smoking hot. I have a little bit of a crush on her. Power of Chi wants to remind everyone, let it go to the past. It's fascinating how few times people are really introspective about their past experiences. And I look at my marriage, my most significant relationship after my marriage, and this last relationship. Those are my 3 most significant relationships. I've processed them. I've looked inward, mostly on not about them, but about who I was in those experiences. And I ask myself 4 questions. What positive things did I learn about myself in each experience? How did I heal from each experience? What was good about each experience, and what am I most grateful for? And when you can get to a place where your desire for a significant relationship exceeds the fear and the pain, when I surrendered the anger piece of grieving, when I processed my anger and released it, that's really what letting go is all about, is releasing the pain. And the minute I released the pain, someone interesting popped into my consciousness. So I'm really happy about that. Trista Marie says, cheering for you and Maria, Jonathan. I think we all want to see you happy. I really appreciate that. I teach from a place of, I use my life experience and witnessing, and also the 20,000 hours I've coached in the last 15 years. I witness human behavior, and I also include my own life experience as both a role model, a teacher, but most importantly, to invite everyone to do the personal development, self-help, and spiritual work that shores up that potential for a healthy, happy relationship when we can learn to love ourselves. By the way, Catherine says, when I see the relationship for what it truly is, I found no longer anger, no longer lingering, since I saw it for what it was, even if I wasn't the one who made it come to the end, being true to myself. I think I'm describing something a little bit different, okay? Because I went to a space of understanding, and there was no anger, and there was no and I went to gratitude and I looked at the lessons and everything. When a treasured relationship ends, it's like a death. And so we have to acknowledge the hurt of losing someone. That's what I mean by anger, because one of the stages of grieving includes anger. Like, in other words, it's acknowledging the hurt, it's acknowledging the pain. I think it's, and by the way, now, of course, I agree with what you said when we release it, but I did a spiritual bypass. I bypassed the anger and went straight to the lessons and the gifts. And I realize now that without completing the like honoring the hurt, honoring the feelings, I was holding on to it. I was bypassing it, but it was still present inside of me. So I invite you all to look at every one of your past relationships. Do you hold a bit of anger and maybe release it going forward? Okay. Jerry says, always move forward. It's meant to be hard. At least Jonathan tells it like it is. You know, folks, I asked myself, why did I go through this? And I am very clear that this ending of a relationship and the pain that I experienced and the grieving and all the gratitude and everything was to not only prepare me for real deep emotional and spiritual love beyond the transaction, but most importantly, to be in my power, to be in my sovereignty, and to be a better coach. I've spoken to so many women who are deeply hurt by the ending of a treasured relationship, and I witnessed that they are still holding on to so much of the pain. God, it feels like an 800-pound gorilla has been lifted off of my shoulders because I let go of the hurt, or at least let me rewind that. I honored the feelings of hurt. I allowed myself to honor those feelings and invite myself to release it. Annette Paul says, I really have a hard time being angry. You know, it's interesting. It's the same thing for me. So growing up, I wasn't allowed to be emotional in front of my mother. She would stifle my feelings, particularly of anger. And what happened was I effectively became a people pleaser. And I stuffed anger. I have a very hard time getting angry too. So because I've been repressing anger, and anger is an important emotion to acknowledge. Again, I'm not a victim. I am not a victim of what happened. I have no blame towards Marie. It just fucking hurt. It's okay to honor that. Wait a minute. Valley says, may sound corny, but I think meeting Maria is the universe speaking to you. I know. Fuck. I mean, you guys, I called my dear friend today. I go, you won't believe it. And I told him about the name. And he's like, oh my God, the universe really wants to fuck with you, Jonathan. I mean, by the way, no, I don't believe that. But I just think it's kind of ironic. And yet I want to, folks, it's very dangerous to compare two people. Do not compare two people. Compare who you were in one relationship and compare who you are to going forward. How have you grown? How have you healed? How have you incorporated the gifts? How have you evolved as a person? Don't compare two people. Compare who you were then and who you are now. What I mean by compare, hopefully you've grown from your past relationships. Sadly, many people get repressed. The reason why there's so many there's so many dysfunctional people is they haven't properly healed their past relationships. Jane wants to know, does your book help with how to know what one really wants? So again, my book is a journey of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. It's a teaser. This is a beginner's book. This is a very beginner's book to beginning a practice of finding out, who are you? From a place of giving yourself love whenever you're in fear or pain. Okay. Um, Jahila Ford says, it is a generalization to say that it takes us ladies longer to let go. It took me years to get over an 8-year relationship and several years to get over the next one. I did a lot of work. I actually have a belief that men, when they deeply love someone and that person ends the relationship, I think it's very rare for a man to let himself deeply love. And I do believe that sometimes men can carry the pain of that forever. Okay. Um, but I also believe, and I think women have been conditioned throughout history to possibly go from one man to the next, because oftentimes men died in war and a woman would have to find a new mate. So I think they're sometimes better prepared. But I also believe unhealthy attachment takes a very long time to heal. It's quite possible that what I thought was love was really my unhealthy attachment to a person. So anyway, just aware that unhealthy attachment can oftentimes take much longer to overcome than healthy attachment. Jerry says, well, you don't have to worry if you call her Marie. I do have to worry because I don't want to do that, and I just hope that, we can get a laugh if that happens. Beach Lover says, I am so glad you found someone again that fits. Folks, it is so brand new. There is no guarantee that this is going to work out. That's why it's called dating. We're just getting to know each other. I'm hopeful, but the goal is not to get ahead of myself. And I'm sharing this because I want to lead by example. Okay. Melissa says, which book is best for learning how to know if a man is emotionally unavailable in the early stages? Well, certainly my private coaching helps in that particular capacity. So schedule a discovery call with me. What book is the best? You know what? I haven't recommended this book in a while, but How to Be an Adult in a Relationship is a really fascinating book. Also, Barbara DeAngelis' book, Are You the One for Me? Knowing Who's Right and Who's Wrong. This is a great book to read, everybody. This is a fantastic book to read. Barbara DeAngelis, someone write this in the chat box. Are you the one for me? So How to Be an Adult in Relationship. By the way, all the links in the notes where it says Jonathan recommend books, all the book I recommend. How to Be an Adult in Relationship by David Rico and Barbara DeAngelis. Betty says, have you thought about writing a dating strategy book? You know what? No. I am writing a book about love, that I am working on a book about love, but which has some strategy in it. But no, I'm going to tell you why. Human pair bonding is ridiculously complicated. That's why my conversations are merely to evoke your own perceptions. One size does not fit all, because human beings are rather radically emotionally complex. So dating books like The Rules, which I think is garbage. Okay. I think that it's tactics and strategies and tactics just work to serve it's manipulative, and I don't think they work. I think the most important thing in one's life, and I'm going to end on this note, Betty, the best strategy is to build a healthy, know who you are on an emotional level, know what your triggers and your wounds are, heal your childhood wounds, be aware of what you truly want in relationship. Take ownership of your past relationships, heal, have a victor consciousness, not a victim consciousness, learn better communication skills. It's all about becoming the best version of yourself. That's the best dating strategy I can give someone. It's something I'm working on in my new book. It's a chapter is called Know Thyself. Okay. So hopefully that is what helps propel people in the dating, mating, realm. Hey, have you had value in this conversation? If you did, post a comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share. Please hit that like button. Please share this video with your friends. Please hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And also, if you want to connect with me directly, schedule a discovery call with me to see with working with a coach is right for you. Check out my group called Midlife. Oh, Wonder Woman wants to join us. I'm okay.
Sorry, I know you're trying to get off, but I did have a question for you.
No,
I do apologize. I do.
no, it's
I'm out on
okay.
my deck, so I'm not stable or sedentary right now. But because it's been raining in Georgia here, so I have to dump out all the water so the mosquitoes don't,
All
sit
right.
around
So,
here.
what's your question, Wonder Woman?
Well, my question to you is: I'm 58. My partner is 62. He'll be 63.
Okay.
My gift to him will be this year. I don't know if anybody remembers the old S&H green stamps, or the old dream books that people in the
Yeah,
South
sure,
used to
sure,
have.
sure. Yeah.
Right. So he has a thing like that. We're both very esoteric.
Okay.
We've been together for like 20 something years. Our children are raised, but now we're moving into the part of I keep my own house. He keeps his own house. I'm looking at, because he's done all the work and I've done all the work as well. Better than my marriage ever was.
Okay.
But I'm trying to figure out, how do I get to the point if I want to take it to the next level, because I have everything I have right now and everything is good. So I don't want to wreck something that ain't really toe up right now.
Yeah. So let
But
me be clear. Let me
mhm.
just be clear. A couple things. First off, you two have children together, correct?
No, we don't have any children together. He
Oh,
has children from his marriage. I have children from
oh,
my
oh,
marriage.
got it, got it. And
But they're all been launched, graduated
okay.
from grad
But
schools, everything.
you've been together 20 years in a romantic relationship for 20
Yeah.
years,
Yes.
but you live separately.
Yes.
Okay. You're 58, he's 62, about to turn 63.
Yes.
So, Wonder Woman, what is your real question?
My real question is, how do I make the transition? Or how do I find out if I want more? If I have everything that I want, and trying to figure out if I want more, because it's been working for 20 something years.
So
We spend more
well,
time
first,
together than we don't, but it's
okay,
like,
so
okay, sell the houses, get a new house together.
okay, so hold that thought for a second.
Okay.
So first you have to decide what is more. Like, what does that look like? Does that mean living together? Does that mean buying a home together? Does that mean,
Right.
integrating your lives differently? I think that's what you mean by more, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
Dead
because
on.
first, if you don't identify what more is, then then it's just an esoteric, nebulous thing. And
Yeah.
so first you have identified. So now you're asking yourself, if I want more, if I want more.
Yes.
So let me make a suggestion. Okay.
Okay.
Here's my suggestion. Maybe how far apart do you two live from one another?
About 3 miles. And
Okay. It'd be perfect.
yeah.
So
I mean, I
what
moved
I
from
would
Maryland to
do,
Georgia, but then within a year, I moved closer to his home, which is like now 3 miles away.
okay. So here's what I would do. I would do like a trial run, play house together. You spend 1 month in his home,
Okay.
living with him, however your day is going, you do what you do normally. He does what he knows, but you literally are together for a concentrated period of time for at least 1 month in his home and 1 month in your home,
Okay.
just to see how it feels living together. Now, I'm sure you spend weekends together and you do other things, but
Yes.
so what a lot now here's where it's tricky, because a lot of couples find themselves in experiences known as, hold on a second. There's a book called Living Apart Together. This is becoming a strategy for a lot of people because there's a value in having your separate home. And in fact, there are celebrities I am aware of. There was oh God, Tim Burton and his former partner, Helena Baum Carter. Helena,
Okay.
they actually had two homes side by side. They had children together, and they just went back and they actually created a hallway in between the two homes.
If I had enough money and enough land, I would love it. I love the
Yeah, I
idea
know
of that setup.
that's an unusual situation.
It is. It's
Um,
not for me, but yeah.
yeah, but what you can do is do a test drive, a trial run, just to see what it feels like for both of you, and then have a conscious conversation. How did it feel for us living together? Do we work well together? The fact that you're only 3 miles apart and you probably can't, but at some point, Like when you're 75 years old, do you want to just be like, I mean, like driving is a pain in the ass, not 3 miles is nothing. So that's not a big deal. But, going to the doctor's appointments, like, are you going to be like Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, like I mentioned before? At least they live together. They work and separate things, but they still live together because you can share expenses with one another. It allows for
And
putting more money
Jonathan, I
away.
mean, I think we've done, I don't mean to stop you, but I think we've done a lot of things that make us both safe with each other. Like, even though, he has his, I guess, his pot of money, his home.
Yeah.
He takes care of his children, even though they're grown now, just like my children. But one of the big asks for me was initially when we met, and like I said, it's been 20 years, but up front, I was like, well, look, how do you feel about having an insurance policy that I pay for? I've paid for it all these years. So if something happens to him, I know that, at least he was not opposed to the idea.
Yeah. I mean, by
We
the way,
go to
there
doctor's
are
appointments together. We just put it on schedule. He has his job. I have my job. We're both still working. So yeah, those types. We share a lot, but we haven't done the whole putting it all together under one roof thing.
So let's explore this. Let's take it a little bit deeper. Even though I was planning on exiting, we'll go a little bit
okay. You know
deeper.
what? I can come back in. I just found you. I don't.
So what are you scared of? If you, like, okay, because you're like asking yourself, do I want to do this? Let's look at it from the perspective of what fear comes up if you did this.
Perhaps a loss of autonomy, space, and other people's children.
Okay.
Or things that come with the ex-wife, and I'm somebody's ex-wife as well. But I've always done the most to make sure that none of those lines were crossed. And because he's a daughter of a father of 3 daughters, and they lost a child initially, a son. So him and his 3 daughters are very, very close. But they're the ages of their mother, and I'm not talking bad on her, but I'm just saying I don't want it in my house.
Let me jump in. So you're not worried that it will end the relationship if you do this. Your concern is a loss of autonomy and possibly too much enmeshment by being in this environment. If I'm understanding what the fear is a loss of autonomy. So, it's interesting. My mother and father were married 66 years before my mother passed away. And they lived I mean, literally, they spent 60, they were rarely ever apart from one another, ever, rarely.
I'm sound like my parents. Yeah.
And the last 30 years, but what I witnessed with my mom and dad is my mom had her passions. My mom was a champion bridge player. She was a champion poker player. I mean, she'd go to Vegas and my lunch money came from her gambling events, like she was a good gambler. By the way, 300-pound woman from the old country. I mean, playing with like sophisticated gamblers because she had the best poker face on the planet. That was my mom. My dad, my dad being Turkish, he founded the Turkish-Israeli community here in Los Angeles. He was Navy Coast Guard. He was Coast Guard Auxiliary. My father was a Navy man. So they each had their respective passions. So there was important to have autonomy. So you have to have your own mutual passions, but also your individual passions, but also a mutual passion with one another. So certainly when you integrate into each other's lives, you take on the baggage of the exes. Okay. That's just it's just a reality
of life, and I've skirted that for a long time. So
I'm going to assume after 20 years, if the two of you haven't figured this shit out by now, then that's, which I'm assuming
that would be a red flag. The thing is, he's asking, and I am the one backing up, and I should know by now. So I think you're talking to me more directly. Because he's like, okay, let's go ahead and lay out our finances. We look at our pensions, retirement funds, all those things are like an open book.
Yeah.
None of that is unknown to either one of us, but I'm just kind of like teetering on like, I don't even know. look, I don't know if it ain't broke, should I be trying to fix anything? But he's asking, and I don't know how to bring myself around to look at that because I'm not trying to get got. I'm not,
Okay,
and not to say that he would, but it's something in me.
so I want to share something with you, and I'm going to speak to all the women in the audience, Wonder
Okay.
Woman. So it's fascinating because most women think men are the non-committal one. And here you have a man who's like, I want to go to the next level. And it's irony because you're a
Yep.
woman going, I'm putting on the brakes, right?
Raising my hand, that would be me. Yeah.
Let me explain something about men to all the women listening. Men like to nest, N-E-S-T, nest. They like to nest into a relationship. Men honestly like the security of commitment. Okay. We're kind of like, there's this, the men who are fearful of commitment in the dating market pool today, and you're not in the dating market pool,
No,
but
I'm
the
not.
men who are afraid of commitment, they're
Mhm.
usually deeply wounded from their past and they have fear that causes them to be commitment phobic. But once men are in a relationship, by the way, women are the ones who initiate divorce 70, 80% of the time. Men, once they're in a committed relationship, now they can get lazy, they can stop being romantic, they can stop like a lot of things can happen that causes women to go, I want to move on from this relationship. But it's fascinating to me. So you have to look. So Wonder Woman, I'm just going to say this.
Yeah, give it to me straight.
As soon as we wrap up, I want you to take 3 deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to sit in your patio, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. Take those big, gigantic breaths. 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 I'm a guy. I have boobs on the mind. Breaths. And sit with the feeling of what would it feel like to live with him temporarily, 1 month at a time in each other's homes. Just breathe into that.
Okay.
And surrender to the possibility that it could be amazing, that it actually brings the two of you close together. Surrender to that possibility, embrace that possibility that it could actually create an environment where the two of you actually connect at a deeper heart-centered level. Okay. Most likely, here's my prediction. I most likely it will not trigger your fears, but you'll be experiencing a little bit of the concern, the enmeshment and whatnot. Okay. You can make an agreement. Hey, can we do this back and forth every once in a while for the next year or two? And by the time I'm 60, I will seriously consider this. I mean, you might want to put a timeline saying, and, would you be okay to give me a year or two? I mean, we've already got 20 years under the belt. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. And we can do this very consciously. And if you need to, you can get a written contract about the things you talked about.
Beyond what we already have, like, all the financial stuff is in place and, wills. So
Power of Chi says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is not about fixing anything. This is about
not broken. I'm just looking in order to enmesh our lives a little bit better, or to the point, because I think I owe him that. Now, I don't owe anybody anything, by the way, but it's been 20 years. So it's like, okay, Rhonda should have get off the pot. So that's where it is. Wonder Woman I am. But yeah.
So I'm here to say, you know what? I look at my mom and dad who spent literally the last 30 years of their lives, literally 2 Barker loungers side by side, watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and Lifetime movie stuff. Okay. But mind you, my parents we're talking about people in their 70s and their 80s at this point. Mm-hmm. They were inseparable. They had their own things, but they were inseparable. They were best friends. Okay,
and
let me
that's
tell
what
you
my parent had before my father died. Yes, my mom just turned 80, but it was that whole thing. You never saw one without the other. They had their own individual predilections, whatever they wanted to do. But you never saw them, and they were truly a unit. And that's the way I was raised with that.
So I want to end on this story, and then we're going to go. So I want to tell this story about my mom and dad. This is about 10 years ago. My mom was in her early 80s. My dad was mid 80s. And I came over to their house one day, and they weren't watching, Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. I go, "What's going on?" They go, "Well, the cable is out. It's going to take them a week to fix. They have to rewire all the cables." So they were without television.
What do they do?
So I go, "What have you guys been doing?" They go, we're just talking to one another." Okay, put that in a box for a second. We're just talking to one another. So a week later, I came back to the house and I go, "Mom, why aren't you guys watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune?" She said, "We're not done talking to each other."
Great story.
So the real love resides in that friendship, that you wake up in the morning going, "I can't tell you what I'm thinking about today." And I know our lives are rather routine and mundane, but a soul of a person takes lifetimes to get to know. You can still be uncovering things for the next 20 or 30 years with this man. So I invite you to take a little test drive to see what it's like living together. Surrender to the possibility that it could be an amazing experience. Are you with me?
I'm with you. Thank you so much.
Can I reach in and give you a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug?
Can you please?
All right. Wishing you much success. Keep us posted, Wonder Woman.
Will do. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Wow, I love that conversation with Wonder Woman. You know what, folks? This was a brilliant, or not a brilliant, but this was a real treat to be able to look at a couple. And she was genuinely asking herself, do I want to go to the next level? Do I want to go to this level? And she was doing it from a very mindful place. They have a wonderful relationship together. This isn't about it ain't broke, don't fix it. It was more like, do we want to go to another level? And she was being introspective. And I hope my suggestions for her was allow her to, like I said, maybe test drive it to see how it feels. I certainly believe by the time she's 65, I think let's just call that retirement age. I think at least at a minimum, they should reach that level by then, but she might reach that level sooner. And what she really can surrender and letting go of the fear and embrace the possibility that could even be better than what it is today. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, check out the links below to schedule a discovery call to see if working with a coach is right for you. All right, I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we can all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Beach Lover and Debbie and Vida and Aaron and Valley and certainly Wonder Woman and Cassie and Lala Pop and Terry and Power of Chi and Jahila Ford and Just Cami. Everyone, big Trista. Everyone, big hugs. Thanks so much. I'll keep you posted on today's date. Maybe I'll do a live tomorrow. Take care. Thanks. Bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.